Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for One Piece chapter 1068. When we last left our heroes, we learned a bit more about Vegapunk, about how his devil fruit works, what's going on with that giant head. He ate the brain fruit, I believe it's called. And at a certain point, he detached his brain from the rest of his head and stored it as like the punk records of the Laba phase on Egghead. We also learned a bit about sort of what he wants. He wants to leave Egghead, presumably because he knows that, like, the government's coming for him. He feels bad about what happened with Bonnie and Kuma. He has something to give to Bonnie. He wants everyone to be able to tap into the infinite knowledge of punk records. So we get a little bit about Vegapunk and the sort of, you know, his desire for greater and greater knowledge at what cost is, of course, thanks to Kuma, the theme that sort of laces through all of that. We learn a little bit about that robot that Luffy and the gang found Vegapunk in. That it had attacked Mary Joyce 200 years ago, and no one quite knows why. Mary Joa, I think is the official translation. I think I have that right. But anyway, the rest of the crew is sort of watching this whole conversation play out with Shaka when everyone finds out that CP0 is here, and Shaka's plan is to tell CP0 that they can't really dock at Egghead, but he knows full well that will not go over well and tells everyone to prepare for war. So that's where we leave off. So let's jump right, or that's where we left off. So let's jump right on into chapter 1068, A Genius's Dream. And the cover story continues with the fight between Judge and Caesar. Germa 66's An Emotionless Excursion, Volume 25. Mads, the group to which they once belonged. And we see Judge and Caesar have been fighting, and we don't see much of that image of Mads. We get a little bit of it, like the bottom of that thought bubble, really only being able to make out Vegapunk. But this might give us, we never really saw much of anyone's time in Mads. So I'm curious if we're going to get a flashback in the cover story here. I don't know. Either way, Judge and Caesar are still at each other's throats. And we open with, I believe that was Pythagoras, the larger robot, greeting CP0. Cypher Pull, thank you for returning our Seraphim. Unit S-Bear is capable of returning on its own from there. Forgive the curt treatment, but we are too busy at the moment. Oh, so he's not like actually going out and greeting him. This is like an intercom thing. Give S-Bear the order to return and consider your mission complete. Your escort is appreciated. And Lucci listens on, suspicious as Kaku reacts. Now what kind of cold shoulder is that? And Lucci has an idea. Has he figured us out? Kaku yells at Pythagoras. We've just finished a long voyage. The least you could do is let us relax on dry land with a cup of tea. Plus, it's cold out here. Like, he's so full of shit, and he knows it. Everyone knows it. Everyone is aware of what CP0 is here to do. They're all just sort of denying that they're here to do it. But Pythagoras just tells them, Naval Base G14 is nearby and can welcome you. And Lucci, holds up his little, handheld Den Mushi, and asks, is that Dr. Vegapunk? Correct. If I asked you about the Egghead disappearances, would you know what I mean? Okay, that's interesting. No. Who was disappearing? 2 months ago, a Cypher Pull number 5 ship went missing. 1 month ago, it was CP7. And 2 weeks ago, CP8. So Vegapunk has been plotting against the government for a while. It's not just... Which would mean that it's not just what I sort of assumed, the government would kill him for knowing something about the Void Century, or everything about the Void Century, I think, as Vegapunk's little flashback a couple chapters ago would imply. He's also been making active moves against Cypher Pull. All the government ships that have visited Egghead in the past 2 months have failed to return from the trip. Why is that? Pythagoras, at least acts confused. Huh? Is that true? According to our recollection, all of those ships left port from here. And Lilith barges onto the line. Hey, what are you insinuating, huh? You think we've been messing with Cypher Pole? Go to hell! Pythagoras tries to hold her back. Lilith, I know you're evil, but you shouldn't antagonize them. And Lilith is still going on. I'll open the port right up so you can come see for yourself. Which is, not the right choice right now, given who all is on this island. No, not that either. I think Pythagoras takes over. At any rate, we must ask you to leave. Lucci comments, I see. Message received. Hattori gives a little kukaru, and the line clicks off. As Kaku asks him, we see like all of the Cypher Pole agents behind them, like readying their guns, ready for a fight. But Kaku asks, what now, Lucci? Prepare to leave the ship behind. Huh? We'll use Seraphim S-Bear's power to fly onto the island. Oh, they're gonna sneak on anyway. Not with the full invasion force, but still with, some CP0 members. Admittedly, the whole thing about bringing Lucci and Kaku back as, like, arc villains here is, like, we already dealt with Lucci and Kaku 600 chapters ago. How much stronger could they be to pose a serious threat this late in the game is kind of the question Oda has to answer about their inclusion here. So we'll see what he does with it. But Lucci tells him, the moment we show any aggression, the sea beast weapons will devour this ship. And Kaku realizes, yes, sir. And then we cut back, I didn't mention this during my recap, what happened on Kamabaka, of Kuma running away from the revolutionaries. So we're back on Kamabaka. Kuma! Wait, get back here, you! Hey, Kuma! Kuma, where are you going? And this is all of the revolutionaries running after Kuma as he is ripping off all, like, the somewhat, I guess, mechanical equipment the revolutionaries had, like, strapped onto him to try to heal him. Kuma, where are you going? And he rips it off, and he uses his devil fruit power to warp away. Dragon calls out, Kuma! Presumably he's headed towards Egghead. But then we come back to the scrap heap on Egghead, where last we left off, Vegapunk had asked Luffy to take him away. You want us to take you out of here? But why? Isn't this your lab? And Vegapunk tells him, that's correct. I've been extracting every bit of research money I can from the government to carry out whatever experiments I fancy. Even now, as we speak, my mind is overflowing with ideas. And even still, I don't have the time, the manpower, or the funds to see them all to fruition. One day, I hope to create my ideal world through science. A world in which energy is abundant, available, and free to everyone around the globe. Okay. So that feels... I mean, definitely there's... I'm trying to find the words to put on my thoughts on that sort of revelation right there. And I'm struggling to find words. I feel like I've been struggling to find words this whole video, which is a whole other thing to explore in my own time. But my point, like focusing on this little section, because could that goal be part of the government's displeasure with him? That making, energy free to everyone, somehow diminishes the power, at least the celestial dragons have. I don't know. I might be, overlaying the world government with, like, real world capitalism that would absolutely be opposed to Vegapunk. But I'm not sure. Anyway. But also it does have echoes of Luffy in Wano to create a world where no one goes hungry. There's some nice little echoes between Vegapunk and Luffy there. But Luffy doesn't quite follow. Huh? Guess that didn't land for you, did it? And he just comments, so you're gonna give everyone something? Which, again, is what Luffy said just a few days ago in Universe to Kaido, but okay. But Jinbei fills in, the resources that we use to create energy are a constant source of war and squabbling between nations. And Vegapunk picks up on that precisely. How foolish mankind is. Just reach out and feel. Energy is right here, and there, and all around us. The world is positively brimming with it. And he, like, lifts one leg up on a piece of scrap, and we see, like, his image, this, like, sort of fantasy of energy swirling around him. I had this image of, like, the scene in Vulcan's workshop in Fire Force when he first shows Shinra, Iris, and Arthur the image of, like, the whales in the world before the cataclysm. Yeah, it has the whole the scientific genius, the junkyard, and the sort of fanciful world here. Not that, like, Oda's calling back to Fire Force or anything, but a nice little note there. If we can simply convert it into a kind of power that you can see and use, we would be eliminating one of the greatest causes of war in the world. Mark my words, science will one day reach that lofty realm. And Luffy's just confused. Oh, I guess the energy is the problem. It's not the giving everyone what they need that's throwing him off, but he genuinely can't process this. It's too abstract. And Vegapunk is just shocked. No interest! But Luffy presses, well, it's really good of you to try to make everyone happy. I'm not interested in heroes, though. Which, I pointed out at the end of Wano that, like, that seemed to be a shift in Luffy. The whole, what I said about going into a world where no one goes hungry, as a shift from Fishman Island Luffy, what he said about, that famous line about, you know, the hero shares his meat, I want the meat for myself. So even though he seems to have changed from that, like the broad strokes of that worldview, the terminology, I'm not a hero, I'm a pirate, has still, like, sort of stuck into his head, even as it's not really true anymore. Anyway, so why do you want to leave this place? Yes, that's the issue. The harder I strive to find the energy I've been seeking, the closer I get to the power source that moved this machine soldier. The ancient energy that gave it strength. Which is peeking into the void century, which makes him need to leave, I'm guessing. It's in a scientist's nature to want to peek at the answers. If I were to undo the veil wrapped around that forbidden history, what might I find underneath? In carrying on my friend's will, I find myself treading further into the depths of... And then they hear an explosion with CP0's arrival, I'm guessing. I forget, though. I could probably go back to, like, 2 chapters ago and check this, but did Luffy and the gang hear the Ohara backstory? Or how Vegapunk ties into the Ohara backstory? Or is that I think that was just Team Robin. And Luffy and the gang are, like, still clueless as to what exactly he's talking about. But any questions about that are overlaid by this explosion. Yeah! Ah! And Luffy looks back, huh? As, like, the screaming continues and Vegapunk is also surprised. And Vegapunk tells them, so as you can see, I've dug a bit too deep into the past. And now the government's going to get rid of me, just like they got rid of Ohara. Okay, so no, they had no idea until he just threw that at their feet. Shocking the crew. What? And I forgot, because my memory of the Robin flashback is that it wasn't really something that was, like, told to the crew. It was just Robin's thoughts before the Say You Want to Live scene. So I forget if they ever found out about how Ohara tied into their own crew. But either way, the government is coming for him, and then they would then be coming for Luffy with the same force they come for, you know, Void Century scholars. Though they're kind of already doing that with Robin. Anyway, Vegapunk comments on the explosion. Sounds like that commotion's being caused by CP0. And Luffy questions, Zero? CP0 are the ones who act solely on the Celestial Dragon's orders. Why are they CP0? You don't mean CP9? You just can't... More Luffy failing to process. Because again, they, I guess, never knew that CP0 was on Wano, on Onigashima during the battle. But Jinbei tells them they're above CP9, whenever they're active. It's said that world-shaking events are about to occur, as they occurred on Wano and Dressrosa, and, you know, yeah, pretty much, that's their whole thing. World-shaking events all the time for Luffy and the gang. But Kaku is just looking, we cut to CP0 as Kaku is just looking around. Get a gander at this future metropolis. What a lark. And the citizens of Egghead all sort of react. Is that Cypher Pole? I thought they always wore black suits. Why didn't they come through the port like usual? Yeah, why didn't they? So the citizens are a little concerned, we're seeing. Hey, did you hear? They're saying 2 sea beast weapons are destroyed near the shore. Does that mean they're intruders? And Lucci is just, quiet, not making any noise at all, any reaction to all of this. As Pythagoras reports to the crew, Shaka, CP0's on the island. And Shaka questions, how did they get past the port? While Usopp screams, yeah, they're here! And Robin is just snapping, oh, I hate him. Go away, Rob Lucci. I loved last chapter, the Usopp Nami no forgiveness vibes towards Lucci. And that might be a recurring theme throughout this arc. It'll be nice. Pythagoras reports, the beasts are devouring their ship by the coast. It would seem they refuse our suggestion. I suspect that they use the pawpaw fruit's powers to reach the island. Oh, so, okay. Because I commented during the fight with Seraphim Jinbei that he somehow had what's his face, Senor Pink's devil fruit. And that maybe that meant that Senor Pink was dead. But we see that Seraphim Kuma has Kuma's devil fruit. And Kuma also still has his devil fruit. So I guess they really are just creating full, effective devil fruit clones. Though I suppose I could have said we already knew that with Momo's fruit at all. I don't know. But Shaka comments that they used Esper. Well, if they give up their ship for a chance to fight, they were clearly determined to get here one way or another. Evacuate the researchers and workers. Send Sorry, I am feeling out of it right now. Send Atlas back to the lab. Mobilize Seraphim's S-Snake, S-Hawk, and S-Shark, which would be, I think that's going to be Hancock and Mihawk and Jinbei, of course we know. But yeah, that's the obvious for those code names. Put Sentomaru in charge of them. Okay. So we haven't really seen Sentomaru since Sabaody, as I recall. And at the time, he seemed very much, a soldier of the Marines. But I guess we're about to see he's far more allied to Vegapunk than he is the Marines. Anyway, Pythagoras responds, yes, sir. And then we cut back to the scrap heap. Vegapunk is still asking, so, if I pack up my belongings, may I request our trip out to sea with you? And Luffy retorts, you make it sound like we're going on a picnic, mister. And Jinbei adds in, you know that your disappearance would be an international scandal. But Luffy actually ends up siding with him. Sure, why not? Your head looks funny. And Chopper reacts, that's your reasoning? So yeah, I guess Vegapunk will be with the crew for a while. Which might be set up for Egghead being a far more transitional arc than I was kind of thinking. If what happens next is just the gang beats feet out of Egghead, runs away from CP0. CP0 is kind of trapped here, to be honest. They no longer have a ship. And maybe Vegapunk joins, not joins the crew, even in a Momo and Kinemon or Vivi sort of way, but is with the crew for a while, a step above Caesar and several steps below Vivi, sort of in his status with the crew. Let's go on up then. This place will be a battlefield soon. I'd like you to take Bonnie up to the lava phase above the clouds. Oh, sure. Good. See you up there. And he vanishes. Was he just a hologram the whole time? Or does he have some sort of teleportation item that he's invented? But that obviously shocks Luffy and Chopper. What? He vanished? Mr. Appleman? I think that's Jinbei's exhausted. The future makes my head hurt. And then we see what might be one of the hologram monsters from earlier terrorizing CP0. The common troops shooting at it, but not doing any damage because it probably is a hologram. Look out! There's a giant monster! Troops running away, firing uselessly at it. The bullets do nothing! Yeah, it does nothing because there's nothing there. But Kaku is just raring to go. I've always wanted to fight one of these. It's not meant to be down on this sea. It's a space monster! Tempest kick! And he tries to kick at it, and, I believe that's Stussy under that mask, yeah? I forget if, for some reason I think it might also be Khalifa, but I forget if Khalifa is part of part of part of CP0. I don't know where my train of thought is going right now. It's just all over the place today. The wiki does not seem to imply that she is part of CP0, so I'm assuming that is Stussy. Okay. Anyway, Stussy tells him that won't work. It's just a hologram. And Kaku yells at her angry, "Mention that first!" And Lucci, oh, there's the answer right there. I could have just waited a fucking line. You seem to know a lot about this place, Stussy. Of course. I haven't been here in ages. And Kaku's just, jumping up in the air with the Rokushiki powers. I forget which one this is. Well, since I'm already in the air, I might as well go above the clouds. If Vegapunk's anywhere, he's bound to be there. And as he heads up towards the lava phase, Stussy asks Lucci, "Do you see those two lines running across the cloud, Lucci?" "Yeah." If an enemy crosses those lines, as we see, Kaku enters into this sort of like grid, or passes through this grid, and to his surprise, gets attacked. It activates a laser beam. And we hear Kaku yell, "Ah!" They call it the Frontier Dome. That's the defensive system that surrounds the lava phase. And the soldiers call out, "Oh no, Kaku!" And Stussy is just continually letting Kaku get the shit beat out of him. I'm pretty sure this is just like her having a laugh at his expense, but also maybe there's something more to it. I kind of doubt it, but it might be possible she's trying to weaken CP0 from the inside. I really doubt it, but we don't really have a lot of info on Stussy as a character either way, beyond her little initial appearance at the wedding. But anyway, Stussy finishes, "The point is, don't take the world's greatest scientist lightly." And Lucci just gets onto her, "You could have warned him first." And Kaku, scorched, but still raring to fight Stussy now. "You got a heart of ice in there, Stussy." "Teehee, but you're feeling warmed up now, aren't you?" Who said, and Atlas appears, despite the fact that Shaka had initially told her to hang back. "Who said you were allowed to be more violent than me on Egghead?" And Lucci looks at her quizzically, And Stussy notes, "There's Atlas. Atlas. That's one of the Vegapunks." But Shaka calls down, "Atlas, stop. You can't handle them." But Atlas doesn't really seem concerned, raring to go. Ultra, mighty, pawn, and we see Lucci activates his devil fruit. "This isn't a game. 6 King pistol." And just right, that punch right to the face. We don't get to see Atlas's face yet, but the impact has her hair, spike out. As the citizens all call, "No! Atlas!" And Kaku comments, "Absolutely merciless." And we see that he's, cracked one of Atlas's eyes. As Lucci just looks at her, she sees Lucci from between his fists, and then he unleashes some explosive attack on her, destroying her. The citizens scream, "Eek! Atlas! Eek!" And some worker calls out, "Shaka's given an evacuation order. Everyone into the factory. We're under attack." And we see Atlas is still able to groan. Due to, being a robot, even though with half her face blown off, she's still alive. As Lucci notes, "You're still alive." And Luffy's kind of ignoring the drama here to go up to the top and get to Vegapunk. "Hurry! We gotta get up there in the vacuum rocket!" But as he's running towards the lava phase, he reaches the battlefield. Reaches where Atlas has just fallen, and Lucci stands over her. And Lucci, neither of them were expecting to see the other. As, CP0 had no idea the Straw Hats were here. Straw Hat? Pigeon Guy? To be continued. Next week. Okay. So, another really fun chapter this time. It's sort of lacking in the kind of the sort of intriguing questions that the previous chapter did. But we're really getting into the drama of the arc. The sort of tying together of earlier threads that makes this all feel like a final saga. with Luffy's reunion with Lucci, that I'm sure will come to the focus next week. But for now, what we have here, I'm looking at it again, trying to like really put my thoughts in order. My thoughts have just not really been in order today, so sorry about that from a quality standpoint. But we have a little bit more setup with Kuma, seemingly on the way to Egghead, though it's not quite clear. A little bit more of character exploration into Vegapunk, getting at what his true ultimate goal is. And we can see the way that might, how that might put him at odds with a government that sees hierarchy as its sort of, natural order. For all, I'm sort of viewing this in contrast to the existence of Im, right? How the government, especially behind closed doors, is dedicated to there being someone above it all. It has the kings all say they're all equal and they're all at the top, except for maybe the dragons, but there's someone above them. I don't know, I'm putting all these thoughts together in my head. They're bouncing around. I haven't quite reached a definitive answer of what I'm getting at with Vegapunk. I don't know. I don't know where my brain is today. I really don't. It's really frustrating. I don't know. But still, this sort of... I'm still thinking about the sort of comparisons with Vegapunk and Luffy at the end of Wano. The world where no one goes hungry, the world where everyone has energy. Vegapunk is much more abstract, and that's why it doesn't quite connect with Luffy, I should say. But there definitely is a link there that can very much sort of tie... is tying Vegapunk and Luffy together in a thematic way. Now, does that make up for some of the awful things he's done? We'll see exactly how he plans to atone. Like, the thing he wants to give Bonnie, can he help Kuma regain his sense of self? These are all things I think Vegapunk has to do to really be considered a hero, whatever that means. But yeah, Vegapunk continues to be an interesting character to explore. And then there's some good comedy with Stussy here, sort of roasting Kaku all the time. The Lucci Atlas fight doesn't really do much for me, beyond set up a Lucci-Luffy rematch, which again is an interesting concept, but also a challenging one, given that, Lucci is a very old enemy at this point. This was a good 650 chapters or so ago. It's been a long time since Lucci. And so I'm curious to see if there'll be any sort of threat at all to a Luffy who has full control of Haki and Gear 5 and all of these sort of power-ups that Luffy has gained over the course of the series. What is really the point of sticking Lucci back into the story, which has kind of been the question since Lucci was reintroduced in Dressrosa, as I recall. And now it's time for Oda to finally have an answer to it. Maybe there'll be something thematic in there. Maybe it's just a good fight scene. We'll see next time. But all in all, it's a really fun chapter. There's a lot here I really like, and I want to see where Oda takes all this. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, do whatever makes you happy, And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!